Hey guys, this is Jeff from War for the Tower. I have a very special guest with me today. His name is Adam, and he's an unspoiled listener. What's up, Adam?
Oh, hello.
You found out about the War for the Tower through Unspoiled, yeah?
Oh, yeah, that's correct. I listened to Natasha and... Well, it was Natasha and Miles doing the Dark Tower series on there, and I heard an ad... Well, near the end of it, when they were getting done with it, they're like, oh, someone's doing a campaign based on this. And I started listening to you and your posse doing War for the Tower, and now I'm a part of it. So I'm pretty excited about that.
Oh, that's so cool. So we've been advertising on Unspoiled for a little while now on the Dresden Files and now on Doctor Who. And so that's y'all out there. I just want to thank you for listening. And you too could be a guest on the War for the Tower if you're interested. Tell people about your character, Adam.
My character is Crandall. He is a security robot with many other functions.
He's a Dark Tower robot, which means he gets to have emotions of a sort. And we've already done this really cool backstory episode, and he's got some secrets, which Dark Tower robots always seem to have.
If you have the password, maybe you can find out what it is.
So yeah, if you guys would like to, be a character on the War for the Tower, just reach out at warforthetower@gmail.com. And once again, I want to give mad thanks to Natasha and Miles and Rashawn and everybody else in the Unspoiled family. We're doing great things out here and correcting a few of the mistakes Steve pulled on us near the end there. Check us out, warforthetower.com.
Long days and pleasant nights.
And may you have twice the number.
This is an Unspoiled Network podcast.
This is Unspoiled, covering Doctor Who Season 5, Episode 7, Amy's Choice. In this episode, I thought because Amy was pregnant that there was going to be some other kind of choice that she was going to have to deal with. I thought this was going to be kind of heavy. It turns out it still kind of is a little bit heavy. I really, really liked this episode, though. Welcome to Unspoiled. Welcome to the show, everyone. I am Natasha.
And I am Jamie.
Welcome back. We had a week off where Jamie was exploring the dark and mysterious areas of the United States in New Orleans.
Where the veil is thinner.
And I was exploring the dark and mysterious crevices of my sinuses as I tried to clear my head with a neti pot because I got sick.
Such a bummer.
It was such a bummer. I was looking forward to this vacation so much, and then I just wound up flat on the couch, like gargling and just in pain. Ugh, stupid.
At least you didn't have to move stuff around, though, because you already were pretty much not recording all week.
That is the one advantage. It would have really fucked things up for me if I had to shift a bunch of recordings over. So that, like, the fact that I was already had time off worked. But yeah, I still did have to shove Tuesday's recordings onto this Saturday, so because I did not have my voice back yet. So I do still sound a little bit rough, but I'm mostly back. So this episode is a little bit bonkers. Mm-hmm. I really, really liked this one. I would like to mention that when the camera pans up and we see Amy with her big mixing bowl and cupcakes and this like golden glow of a kitchen, I just really wanted to go to there so bad. It just looks so homey and nice. She's got the scale out. She's got these big ceramic bowls, which I really need to buy some bowls like this.
Ceramic?
Yeah, like the really giant ceramic mixing bowls. Because I have metal mixing bowls because they're light. Mm-hmm. And they have their uses. I mean, I'm not mad at them. But there is just something about a bowl like this with a big wooden spoon in it that just feels like I am baking, motherfucker. You know, like it just feels like that is what's happening. And I don't know. There's just a feel to it that it's timeless, you know?
Yeah. I don't like metal mixing bowls. I have a couple. I have these big, like, melamine. I think they're melamine mixing bowls.
Yeah.
They're like nesting, so they're all different sizes. And
Yeah.
I love those. They were only like $20 at Bed Bath & Beyond. And one of the best things I've bought. But it's because I wanted to get away from the metal bowls because I just don't like... I think it's the sound of mixing in a metal bowl that I don't like, to be honest.
can totally understand that. Yeah. I like them, like I said, because they're light and they come in such huge sizes, which for mixing certain things, I cook big batches at a time. I need that. But
Yeah.
I have nesting glass bowls.
Mine would be broken if they were glass, for sure.
Yeah, you know, I really kind of thought that I would be worse about it, but they stand up to a lot of abuse. I was impressed with them. But anyway, this whole, and like she's got the like little gingham tablecloth in the background, and the tops of the counters are like that butcher block, which I've always loved the look of that. I know it's not super durable, but they're so pretty. Just, this kitchen has a very cottagey feel.
That should have been a big clue that this was not normal.
I mean, it is.
I don't feel like any of this is stuff that Amy would choose.
Exactly. This, like, the moment that we wake up and we're in the TARDIS and they're like, well, what's real and what's not? I'm like, come on, guys. Very obviously, that is not her life. Like,
Yeah.
It just didn't feel like her at all. And the lighting and everything being very sepia toned, you know, idealized. I was just like, yeah, that's not real.
Also, Rory's ponytail.
Oh my God.
My goodness. That was also another clue. Like, this can't even be.
Not to make light of the really, honestly, I think, effective moment of him dying and her saying, if this is what's real, I don't want it. Mm-hmm. But I was saying that pointing to his ponytail. So, yeah.
It was just such a weird look for him. Like, also, like, why would Rory, a doctor, ever decide to grow his hair like that? So there's, like, little hints where it's like, yes, these characters are new to us. Mm-hmm. But what we've learned about them.
I could deal with a mustache.
Yeah.
But yeah.
The ponytail. Like, what kind of doctor are you? Are you one of those, like... I'm a doctor. Right? You're some kind of weird guru. Like, take these essential oils and hold this crystal up to the light at this time of day and you'll be good.
Use this crystal instead of deodorant. So yeah, we see her and she's in the middle of mixing something else because she's making all kinds of stuff. And all of a sudden she stops and she grabs the counter and she starts yelling. And we see her yell like echo around this very pastoral. It's amazing, honestly, because it's this beautiful area. And then we see Rory come riding in on his bicycle and there's like 6 white geese in the front yard waddling away of this like beautiful little house. The whole thing is so idyllic.
It's like Hot Fuzz.
It is. I kept thinking about Hot Fuzz and I kept thinking about Miss Marple as well. Guys, I'm just, if there's a genie listening out there, just in case, I feel like I need to, this is what I want. Okay. This house, this village, this neighborhood, there's all this talk about how dull it is. You make your own fun. anybody who talks about like, oh, well, there's nothing to do. I mean, granted, that can be a bummer when you're trying to like go out to eat and there's not a lot to choose from or whatever. Fine. But honestly, I have lived in cities, and as much as I do miss aspects of that, I miss public transportation. I miss I would kill to live someplace like this. Absolutely murder another human being for it. I would take their life in order to get the life that I want. This is everything. All of the look of the place, there's the old tile. There are like big old ceramics filled with flowers everywhere. The plaster walls with like some of the exposed brick showing through in places. It's the bowers of roses growing over the front door, the gate covered in like creeping vines. I want it so bad. It hurts to look at this place. I have watched a lot of like HGTV, and the thing that they always do now is the farmhouse aesthetic. Mm-hmm. And I always think that's this. It's not. The farmhouse aesthetic is way more like pared down and honestly a little bit cold to me. There's a lot of metal with it.
It's like those metal fridges, stainless steel fridges.
Not even. I'm thinking about like how you'll have like exposed metal like supports for wood shelves. Or you'll have exposed metal and cord for the bulbs that are hanging from the ceiling, that are like things that are a little bit country, but there's almost a sort of like warehouse feel here and there to me. And I don't love it. It comes so close to what I want. And then I'm like, no, but this isn't right though. And this is it. English cottage. Note to self. This is what I want. It's perfection, and it killed me that this wasn't like what she wanted. And I understand why not, because it's so not her. Like, you could just tell. But God, I like just have a little shed in back where I could do my podcasting and my editing and whatnot, and then come into the main house, waddle past some geese, get to the pasture, ride my bike into town. Oh my God. That's it. That's all I want. That's it. That's everything.
This is where I'd want to Airbnb, but I wouldn't want to live in a little cottage in a little village. I'm very much a city person.
Yeah.
So this, like, I get what you're saying about the aesthetic. It's so comfortable and comforting, and just seems like, oh, if I could vacation there and just sort of block out everything, it would be nice for a couple of days, and then I'd be like, all right, now I got to go somewhere. I like the hustle and bustle of places.
I think that I would probably miss parts of that. You know what I would really miss, and this is so American and so trashy, but it's true. I would miss big box stores. I would be like driving places so that I could get to Tesco's and whatnot, because I would just be like, oh my God, let me shop. But I am not somebody who like interacts with the world very much anymore. I live in my little house and I barely leave here, you know?
I don't either.
You could kind of put me most places and I'd be fine. But when I came out here for the first time after living in Philly for several years, I couldn't believe the feeling that came over me when I smelled dirt and heard birds. It was just like, I didn't realize how much I missed it. I just don't like living in places where there aren't trees everywhere, where there aren't animals. I don't like not having nature around me, and I don't think I even quite realized it, you know?
Yeah. We're lucky here because we're a couple blocks away from Piedmont Park, which is like one of the biggest parks in the city. Mm-hmm. And our whole neighborhood is just full of trees. So it feels like we're in the middle of the city. We're literally in Midtown. But where there's a plum tree in the front of my house. Like, I didn't have that anywhere else I've ever lived. I certainly didn't have that in Los Angeles.
Mm-hmm.
So I get like a little bit of both because Atlanta's just sort of unique in that way.
Yeah.
But I know what you're saying, and I feel that too. Like, I want trees, but I also love big, tall buildings. And yeah, I don't know. I prefer a city.
Yeah, buildings make me feel suffocated.
No, not me at all. Like, I was basically the heart eye emoji when we went to Chicago. I was like, look at all these buildings. Because I just loved all of them.
Yeah, I had a backyard in Philly with grass and a tree, which was like a big deal. Most people don't have a tree. Most people don't have grass, to be honest. Most of the houses that we went to see were cement in the yard, and that was it. And I spent a lot of time out there. And I, like, you know, once I moved here, I realized, I just was like craving it. But, you know, you're in the backyard and there's grass, but also there's the stench of gasoline. It's like, and the sound of the fucking train a block away passing by to deliver the chemicals to the plant that you live right near. So, yeah, it was not my jam. So, yeah, this is like what in my heart I hope to one day be able to have. If I am at a point where, first of all, the NHS sorts itself out, I will try and find a way to move to England to a village like this. And I will be the weird American that moved in and doesn't talk to people. And that'll be fine. Maybe I'll talk to people when I occasionally take my adorable yellow bicycle into town to the coffee shop where I'll tip tap on my keyboard writing my memoirs or something. And I'll wear a big hat.
I've been trying to convince Jason that we need to move somewhere in Europe, but maybe just England because he works in TV and he's like, I can't move there. Like, first it'll take away somebody else's job. They don't allow that. But he's like, you know, has been so resistant to the idea of moving anywhere else. And then last week he was like, you know, it's really a bummer that neither of us had grandparents that were born in another country and we could like move there based on like family heritage.
Yeah.
And I was like, interesting how far you've come.
Yep.
I mean, my great grandma moved from Poland. We could probably move there.
Yeah, I would have to move to Colombia is the closest I'd get, and I'm not doing that. So.
Well, my grandmother's mother was from Ireland, so maybe I could do the Irish thing.
Ireland wouldn't be too. I mean, there's plenty of places that look like this.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, we're about 20 minutes in and haven't talked about the show at all. He comes rushing in, and she thinks she's going to labor, but by the time he gets in there, she's fine, and she's just realizing that she just had some cramping. And they're in the middle of eating some cupcakes when they hear the telltale TARDIS noise of him messing up his landing. And the doctor comes out, apparently not knowing where he is. He is not intentionally here to see them, even though he does make it seem that way initially. Mm-hmm. And this house, guys, I just can't handle it. I'm looking at this. It's just everything I ever wanted. Oh God, I just want it so bad. Fuck. So there's this strange sort of sequence where they're talking and then walking into the center of town rather than inviting him into the house, which I did think was a little bit odd. But I mean, because they like have him come in for a minute, but it cuts right from him walking in with them to them going outside. It's like they just walked through the house, out the front door, and left. Mm-hmm. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's a weird moment. And that was another part of it for me that I was just like, this doesn't feel right. And they're walking down this road with this stone wall and these trees and this ancient church and this churchyard, and the church gates have flowers growing over it. And it's so beautiful. I just want to die. And this
is all in Wales. You could have it.
I want it. Ugh. And there's this old woman peering out the window looking highly suspect. And I was like, all right, what's fucking going on here? And they all sit on this bench at this beautiful spot and are discussing how their lives are at the moment. And all of a sudden, this bird starts chirping and they all begin to fall asleep. And when they wake up, they are on the TARDIS and everything is very confused. And the doctor says, oh, good, you're okay. I just had this terrible nightmare about you two. And then it turns out all of them had the same dream, but understandably, Rory takes offense to the fact that he called it a nightmare. And this is the first indicator that some weird shit is going on here. I got really excited about this. I was like, ooh, we're going in and out of it. I love this. So they then are trying to figure out, and this is before our Dream Lord shows up, they're trying to figure out which one of these is real. Because every time they wake up, they think they're in the realist one. And so they are discussing like the cottage and, you know, what was happening in each of their dreams. And they're like in the middle of that. And they're saying, no, it was just a dream, when the bird starts chirping again. And all of a sudden they go down and then pop back up in the street again, on the bench. And the doctor is picking up all like little like pebbles and leaves, trying to find a seam, I guess. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And he's telling them to trust nothing. And they don't really seem to understand what he means by that. Like, Amy in particular just keeps arguing with him about which one's the real one, because she doesn't seem to give much credence to the fact that every time she wakes up, in quotes, she thinks that she's in the realest place. So that's not meaningful at this point. So yeah, this is the start of it all. They're talking about like whether they're flashing forwards or backwards, because they're thinking that this is definitely actually happening. It's just in the future, which you would, you know, that makes sense to assume you're in a time machine. She's pregnant. You guys are married. This is the future, not a dream.
Right.
You know? And then we go to credits. And when we come back up, we're back on the TARDIS. And they are just still not sure what the hell is going on. And the doctor is like having trouble with the TARDIS. Mm-hmm. And it turns out that he threw away the manual.
Threw it into a supernova.
Yeah, he's such a drama queen. Jesus Christ. He couldn't just throw it away. He couldn't just burn it. No. So they're talking about all of, like, you know, what was going on with the dream, and they're like mid-sentence talking about it. This is real. I'm definitely awake. Yeah, and you thought you were definitely awake when you were all elephanty. To which I'm like, sir. But he says, look around you, examine everything for all the details that don't ring true. Rory says, we're in a spaceship that's bigger on the inside than on the outside, with a bow tie wearing alien. So maybe what rings true isn't so simple. To which I'm like, Rory, I love you. That's fair. And just as they're like, yeah, okay, good point, all of a sudden the TARDIS goes dark. And the doctor seems to have, he says it's dead. We're in a dead time machine. But I'm like, it can't really be, because you would be freaking out, I feel like, a lot more than that if that were true. And he's saying this, and the bird begins to chirp, and he is trying to like instill it in them to remember how real this feels when you wake up in the other place. And when they do, there are a bunch of like kids being led by a teacher off on some like little field trip. The whole thing is like the town feels like it's kind of waking up a little bit because it had been dead quiet when they were walking through earlier. And he notices the old folks in that home that is right near where the bench is. And this old woman like keeps peering at them in a very Bathilda Bagshot creepy way. And the doctor remembers that Amy had said something about how everybody who lives here lives well into their 90s. And that seems like something that's a little suspect. So maybe we should go and check that out. So they go into this home, and there's an old lady knitting a sweater, and the doctor goes up to her and is trying on the sweater for her. And he seems to sort of get an inkling of the fact that she is not a human being and says, "You are incredibly old, aren't you?" To which I'm like, "Sir, that is not the sort of thing you just say to people."
Well, he's 907.
They don't know that. He just seems like an impertinent little twit. And then birdsong, and they come back into the TARDIS again. Only it's really, really cold now because the heating is off because the TARDIS is broken down. And he says something about this woman's nice old lady act. Everything's off, sensors, core power, we're drifting, scanners down, can't see out, we could be anywhere. Someone is overriding my controls. And this is when we get the Dream Lord, a.k.a. Toby Jones, a.k.a. always the villain guy.
Zola What's-His-Face from the MCU.
That's the one. This dude is never not the villain, I swear to God. And it's completely understandable because he is so fucking good at it. He is just delicious. He loves it. It's like chocolate frosting for him. I could watch this guy all goddamn day. He's in an episode of Poirot. He's in the Orient Express episode.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And he plays the dude who's murdered, who is a terrible human being. And he's just flawless. Like, when he showed up in that, I was like, really? And then I was like, oh, God, yeah. Perfect, actually. That happens with some actors. I'll forget how excellent they are. And then it's like 2 seconds, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I take it back. Yep, this is perfect.
I think he played, what's that director's name? Who did all this suspenseful movies? Oh my God, I can picture
Alfred
him.
Hitchcock?
Yeah. I think he played Hitchcock in a movie about Hitchcock and his wife. I think it was called The Girl. It was basically about his obsession with maybe Tippi Hedren, one of the many blondes in his movies.
Okay. This dude is so menacing, and in such a way, like, they're you know, the trope of the bad guy who's having a good time is something that gets tired for me. You know, it's something that I feel like you can, it's not like I hate it when it shows up, but I feel like it's often played with a similar sort of over exuberance that can feel really forced and not organic or genuine. And the way that he plays it, whenever he does that kind of role, he always does it as if he is trying to hold back what a great time he's having. Like, which I find so much more sinister and upsetting. That he's like, you know, I really should control myself. I'm supposed to be the bad guy here, but this is classic though. You know, like, there's a sense of restraint and glee that I just loved.
There's a difference between how he does it and what you're saying that you appreciate about him, and how it's a lack of camp. Like,
maybe that's part of it.
He doesn't go into that sort of campy, over the top. Much as I love John Sims' master performance or everything that Michael Sheen does. Mm-hmm. He doesn't go in that direction. It's like you can see he's enjoying himself behind his eyes, but he's not like being big about it all.
Right. Yeah, it's much more, it feels sometimes like with other, when you play it as, oh, I'm just here having fun, it's like the cruelty feels like a side effect of them just having a good time, which I understand that being threatening, and I understand that being something that is a legit, like, you know, way to play something. But with him, it always feels like, no, the cruelty is what's fun. It's not a side effect. He does that because he likes that part, you know? And that to me is kind of key to keep it at the top in order for me to feel the threat consistently. But anyway, so yeah, he shows up and he says, I'd heard such good things. Last of the Time Lords, the oncoming storm, him in the bow tie. And the doctor says, well, first of all, how are you here? And what are you? And he says, if you're the Time Lord, call me the Dream Lord. There are a number of sick burns throughout this episode, but the first one is, nice look. Really? I'm not convinced. Bow ties? So the doctor pulls something out of his pocket, chucks it. It goes right through the guy. And he begins to kind of, like, for lack of a better word, disapparate and apparate into different places. And there is right out of the gate a sense from this Dream Lord that he knows precisely what the fuck is going on here with Rory and Amy, and he feels like needling them about it. And by them, I mean everybody. He's not particularly fussed about who he's insulting or making feel like. He just wants everybody to be as self-conscious and awkward and unsure as possible, and to get them to all face things that they have been up till now pretty much avoiding talking about or looking at. Which I say, thank God, because I need to have that part of the story settled. I am not interested in a continuation of Rose and Mickey with him feeling like he's always second best. And I just, once I realized that that was what Amy's choice meant, I was very relieved. Because between her trying to fuck the doctor and her boyfriend being very insecure, it's just too much of the same, you know?
Yep.
So he tells them, basically, that he is giving them two different scenarios, and that one of them is the real thing that's happening, and one of them is the fake thing that's happening, and they have to figure out which one's the real one, because if they die in the real one, they will really die. But if they die in the fake one, they'll just come back to themselves in the real one. They will wake up. And I really felt it was clear that it was the TARDIS that was the real one. But I want to say, like, I honestly don't feel like that detracts from the episode, personally.
No, because both things, not that both things are real, but the emotional situation between the three of them in both versions are real.
Right. Yeah, I just didn't mind. And like, I'll say this too. When he starts talking shit to the doctor, and like, I mean, really aggressively talking shit and just being like, oh, so you always leave your friends behind. That was when I was like, oh, this is the doctor. He is self-loathing here. When he said like, nobody hates me as much as you do, I started to like cotton on to what was going on. But even so, again, it did not detract for me at all, even though I was kind of figuring it out, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm always a fan of like the idea of a manifestation of like the worst part of your, not just like your personality, but your own doubt of yourself and your own self-loathing. And it can be done in ways that are kind of tedious, or it can be done in ways like this that I think are really interesting, with it setting up a bunch of scenarios and like kind of poking and prodding you through things in a way that feels almost mythical, you know, of like you have to overcome this dark force within yourself. And I think that's pretty cool. So I like that idea. But yeah, so he tells them that this is the way things are going, and then they bounce back into the village, but they're in the old folks' home, and all of the old folks are gone. And it takes them a weirdly long time to notice that everybody's gone. But I guess it's understandable that they're pretty distracted by him.
Mm-hmm.
Look at this x-ray. Your brain is completely see-through. Bless him. This is when the doctor starts to realize that something is going on with the old people specifically, and they begin to sort of like explore the town and try and track these people down. They go to the most insane park. Like, guys, people who live in England, in Wales, anywhere that's got ancient architecture, really, like, because there's plenty of places in Asia, and like, do you know what it's like to watch y'all just build a playground next to a fucking castle ruin? Do you get how fucking bonkers that seems? This is just, if we had something like that still available, this would be a whole different ball game. A little playground with a little village surrounding it. Like, no, that would not happen. It is it's just in the background. It's of almost no consequence in the episode itself what this place is, how old it is. It's just backdrop, because this kind of ruin is, I guess, everywhere. And I cannot fucking fathom living somewhere where a place like this becomes a backdrop and isn't a huge deal every time I go and see it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, it's because that country is just so much older than anything that remains here.
Yeah.
And the indigenous people of this country did not build castles. They had a different way of life. So we don't have anything even remotely like that here. Like, we're from New England.
Mm-hmm.
I grew up looking at houses that had little gravestones in their yard because, well, they've been there for a couple hundred years and we're not going to move them. And
there's like the cliff dwellings that I saw in like, New Mexico and Arizona and whatnot. Like,
but that's not the same.
But it's just, like I said, treated so like those are considered national parks at this point. Like they are set aside and protected, and they're specifically for like tourism. This is just here,
right,
hanging out.
Like the closest thing I can get to a castle ruin are the little graves that are in people's yards that have been there since the Revolutionary War or before.
Yeah.
There's nothing, even like the oldest buildings in the United States are only from the 1700s.
Yeah.
There's nothing here that is that old. So it's just that whole like feudal way of life where there were castles and towns built around the castles is not something that seems real to us. Mm-hmm. So when we see it in a place like England, you're like, holy shit, it's fucking castles.
It's just like there's nobody charging admission.
Right.
There's nobody watching over it to make sure that there aren't vandals just graffitiing it. It's just there to go up to if you feel like it, whenever. It's just not a concern. It's just insane to me. It's just insane. I'm watching these people like just running around at the swings. I'm like, there's a castle. Do you see it? It's right there. Why are you on the swings? Oh my God. So they're following this old lady to the park, and the doctor is saying there is something really weird about this place. He's really most suspect of this reality right away. And he says something about how the time asleep exactly matches up. Rather than like they wake up and, oh, it's been an hour. It's like they wake up and it's been the exact like 5 minutes that they were gone in the other place, which is helpful. And they're all dreaming the same dream at the same time. Everything about this is just, communal trance, as he puts it. Mm-hmm. And he says, my mind isn't working because the village is so dull. I'm slowing down like you two have. Bitch. So Amy decides to pretend that she's
I think it's funny
labor.
Because he's like, something is wrong here. Let's go poke it with a stick. And it's just because it's so slow. He also says something about, like, how do you keep yourself from self-harm?
Oh, my God. You know what, Doctor? It's not like you do a particularly good job of that either.
He kind of is reacting to it the way that I feel like whenever I go to visit my mom and there's like nothing to do. And I'm like, ugh, it's so quiet. There's nothing here.
Do you remember when their lawyer friend comes to visit in Parks and Rec after Leslie's had her kids? And she's walking through their house and she doesn't want to sit down because every surface is sticky.
She wears a poncho.
Yep. There's just like that. I kind of get that sort of vibe here.
She's like a campaign manager.
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah.
Oh
when you said lawyer, at first I thought you were talking about Justin Theroux's character.
Oh, right, no. So, okay. She pretends to go into labor, and he freaks out, and she says, yeah, so you just completely lost your shit. Don't call my life dull again, okay? And I love when she does that. Rory just kind of is like behind her going, yeah, but he doesn't actually say anything. He's just sort of like pokes his finger out at him like he's about to, and then he just continues on. So this is when they begin to run into the issues that split them up. They walk up the steps to follow this old woman, and then they get bounced back into the TARDIS, and it's really cold, and things are like, they're beginning to realize that they're being pulled towards a cold star.
Yeah,
which
I don't know if
is
that's
evidently not really a thing.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know if that's actually a thing since a star is like a sun.
Yeah, the doctor later on says something about like, cold star, do me a favor. So he seems to think it's nonsense. He seems to think it's nonsense with such surety that I'm like, why didn't you just know that right away? But I do enjoy when they're asking whether it's real or not. He gets very irritated that they are putting all this pressure on him to know everything.
Right, and he's like, I don't know everything about the universe.
Yep.
But you walk around acting like you know everything about the universe. So...
Yep. He is getting mad that he has created a scenario for himself where people look to him for the answers when all he has ever done is make himself the guy that you look to for the answers. And
he also likes
honestly,
to wing it.
I don't have a lot of sympathy. I just don't.
Yeah. He likes to wing it until he hits on what the situation actually is, or what the answer is, or an explanation of a cold star.
Right.
He doesn't want questions of like, well, what does that mean? Have you ever heard of this before? What do we do about it? He wants to be the one that like thinks out loud.
Right, true. Yeah, because they are just, they're not thinking out loud. They're just interrupting his thinking out loud. Mm-hmm. They're not helpful.
No, but what the fuck do they know? Like, they've lived on Earth, like, cold star. Is that a thing? Well,
he is just so contemptuous of other people is really what it comes down to. He has a lot of contempt for people. And you know what? Like, hashtag relatable. I absolutely do, too. You and I were just talking about the idiocy of the average human being.
Yeah.
In basic fucking functions of our planet and society. And, yeah, so I get it. But, like, you picked these people, dude. This isn't just the public at large. This isn't just like, you know, a crowd, a mob of people that you're like, oh, you guys are idiots. These are the folks that you chose to be with you for emergency situations like this one, because that's all you ever do is have emergency situations. So I'm not really going to be on your side here, buddy.
Yeah.
So when they come back to themselves in the village, there's just a bunch of piles of ash. It's pretty fucked up.
Yep. I don't have anything profound to say. I was just like, wonder what happened to those kids.
Yeah. They're just like, where are the kids? And I'm like, guys, you know where they are. Come on. Look at this.
You think they're anthills?
Right? You know? Like, come on. And Amy, and while the doctor is like understandably a little distracted by the piles of ash surrounded by backpacks and water bottles, Amy and Rory are having like the conversation about whether this is what they would want. And he says something about how this feels right. It feels like so calm. Nothing bad could ever happen here. To which she is obviously not feeling the same and tries to gently be like, it doesn't feel like me. Would I be happy settling down in a place with a pub, 2 shops, and a really bad amateur dramatic society? And he gets so offended. And she says, that's why I got pregnant, so I don't have to see them doing Oklahoma. Oh, God, I'm just imagining a British Oklahoma, and that is hilarious to me. And Rory, like, she walks away from him and leaves him standing there very hurt, it really seems like. And they do not resolve this here. And she then begins to put together exactly what the hell is going on here, that these were kids. And then they look up and they see a parade of pensioners, as they say, heading towards them with their canes and their walkers and their crutches and their house shoes and their overcoats, their curlers. It's pretty good, honestly. It is very Hot Fuzzy. Mm-hmm. And
when did this come out? This was definitely after Hot Fuzz. I wonder if it was somewhat inspired by Hot Fuzz.
I could see that.
In little ways. Like just little nods to the genius of that movie.
Because there's a line in Hot Fuzz when they're like, how's the hand? Still a bit stiff. And there's a moment where somebody asks an old lady in the home, how's the hip? Still a bit stiff. And it was so like the intonation was exactly the same. And I was kind of like, is that on purpose? Or am I just like reading way too much into that? I couldn't tell.
I want to see who wrote this episode. Keep talking.
Okay. So this is when the Dream Lord comes up to Rory and Amy and talks about how the doctor loves a redhead. and just, keeps planting doubt. Poor Rory, you're just such an easy mark, buddy. It's so clear just looking at you that you are not secure in this relationship.
To be fair to poor Rory, it doesn't seem like Amy has given him a lot of reason to be super secure in this relationship, especially of late.
Not at all. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's allegedly been years since they have been with the doctor. Mm-hmm. So one would think that, you've been married for years now and she's pregnant with your child. Maybe you should feel a little bit more comfortable that this is what she wants at this point. But evidently that has not really sunk in despite the time that has supposedly passed for them in this reality. So, yeah. And I 100% I said already that I've been really judging Amy in the way that she's decided to handle all of this. She can see how this is affecting him, and she just never gives him a straight answer about how she feels, So it's incredibly frustrating to watch this dude who would clearly die for her getting these sort of lukewarm over and over again.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm not when I say he's a mark and insecure, I'm not even blaming him for that. It's just it's very obvious where the weak link is to just poke at, I'm like, dude, maybe just fake it a little bit. Just make it a little bit less, you're dealing with a mortal enemy here, evidently. Just don't let him know quite so up top how to push your buttons. But anyway, here is when the old lady opens her mouth and a big eyeball comes out. Mm-hmm. Some real bad effects here, kids. Terrible. Really particularly bad even for this show. But it's fine. It doesn't matter because this isn't real. All of them are sort of inhabited, possessed, I don't know what the word is, by these creatures that send out puffs of green smoke and turn you into ash. And they say something to the doctor about it doesn't matter because it's not real. But it's real enough sounding that he gives it a bit of credence initially and thinks that well, okay, maybe you are real. And they tell him all of this, by the way, after he has gotten Amy and Rory to run off by themselves. So he is trying to have this conversation with what he thinks are these aliens while he is defending them, keeping them, giving them time to get away. Mm-hmm. Poor little mail carrier gets turned into ash. For why? Just to show us what you can do. Rude. Don't like it. So they go back to their house and pretty much barricade themselves in as old folks chase them, and they're coming in through the fields. There's the one moment where Rory is given the chance to beat up an old lady, and it takes a little extra for him to finally work himself up to do it, which I really understand. I don't know that I would be able to do it on the first try either. I think I'd have to take a deep breath and remind myself that she's not a little old lady. Mm-hmm. 'Cause she just whack her, and I'm just and even though I know it's a stunt person,
yeah,
it's still that looked like it hurt.
It's probably
a lady,
it's probably a rubber stick piece. What does he hit her with? A plank of wood?
Yeah, some sort of 2x4 or something. So yeah, they're
not a cricket bat. Would have been better if it was a cricket bat.
Oh, that's true. Don't stop me now.
Every time I hear that song, I think of that scene.
Exactly. So while they're barricading themselves into the house, the doctor is trying desperately to stay awake as he is running down the main thoroughfare into the butcher shop.
Mm-hmm.
Can I just say how much I fucking love the dialogue here? Dream Lord, oh, I love a good butcher's, don't you? We've got to use these places or they'll shut down. Just exactly the kind of conversation that I bet is had every goddamn day in that fucking village. I would love a butcher shop, guys. This is what I'm talking about. I have to get my meat from a soulless demon corporation because that's where there is to shop around me. And it's all probably like very terrible quality. The animals are probably treated horribly. And if there was a butcher shop that had meat that was sourced nearby, even if I did have to pay more, even so, I would fucking do it. But it's not an option. And I am so jealous of anybody who lives places where butcher shops are still a thing. I tried to find one around here because Owen and I were thinking to just get his grandfather for Father's Day last year really nice steaks. And that was going to be our gift. And there just weren't any. Like there was finally, we found like a boutique butcher shop that was like one of those that doesn't even really count anymore because it's so fucking hoity-toity. And it was like an hour drive away. If I could live in a little village with a butcher shop, walk down, every day to pick out the meat for dinner, go to a little grocer's, get fresh asparagus to put with it. Guys, it's all I want in life. I just want to live in a village and shop for food.
One of our future month's postcards. I just want to live in a village and shop for food.
Oh, God.
You can have a little yellow bicycle on it.
Vegetarian, aren't you, you big flop-haired wuss? He calls him flop-haired. Oh, God. Flop-haired wuss. So, okay. The doctor falls asleep. But then he comes back. But then he falls asleep. But then he comes back. But then he falls asleep. Happens a few times. He winds up locking himself in the walk-in. Finally. Which is, not a terrible plan. It's probably the most secure spot you're going to find in this town that isn't somebody's private home, I guess. And then we go back into the TARDIS where everybody is wrapped up in blankets, in ponchos. Mm-hmm. She's making ponchos for them.
The greatest crime against fashion since Lederhosen, says Rory.
I mean, Lederhosen, that's a hard one to argue with. That is not a good look. I mean, and I am a girl who loves me some suspenders. But, Lederhosen just have such a, childish look to them. They just are, one step away from overalls, in my mind. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Ooh.
With more decoration.
But yeah, Amy's trying to make the best of it. Here we go. Pond and her boys. My poncho boys. If we're going to die, let's die looking like a Peruvian folk band. I liked that, actually. I thought that was a fun little bit of dialogue that felt real to me, So then they talk about how they should split up the doctor talks about how maybe we should split up, maybe have one of us active in each world, but then he takes that back pretty much right away. And the Dream Lord pops up and is like, oh yeah, I'll take the redhead and you can have the pointy nose for all eternity.
He also calls the doctor Veggie. Veggie's idea is good.
I forgot about that. This is when he sends the two of them to sleep, and Amy is left with him alone. And he pretty much like tells her, the deal is that they're waiting for you to make a choice here. And it's pretty brutal, actually. I was like, that's not fair. I don't like that. Meanwhile, the doctor has, like, in the village, taken control of a minibus. It's like, almost looks like one of those Volkswagens, you know? And is trying to save the people of the town.
Camper van. Didn't they call it a camper van?
Is it? Oh, it doesn't look like a camper to me. Okay, maybe.
Maybe not what we call. I feel like that's what she says later, like when Rory's like, "How did you snap out of the dream?" And she says, "Crashed a camper van."
Oh, okay. Yeah, I never, like, I'm looking at the inside of it. It doesn't look like there's, because, you know, I always think of that as having like a bed.
Right. I don't think that it means the same thing.
Gotcha. So he's driving around collecting people throughout the town. And meanwhile, Amy is stuck on the TARDIS, which is covered in ice at this point. Like everything is like in under a half inch of like rime. And it's so funny because I was just thinking, man, the doctor always like leaves her. And then, sure enough, that is what he says, is he always leaves you. And he never even says he's sorry. And she says he doesn't have to. And he says, well, that's good because he never will. Which I like that line a lot. Oh, well, if you're all right with that, I guess you're all right with that because... Oh, my God. And I forgot that he says something about the two of them being alone and then says anything could happen and pops back up and he's in, like, a deep, like... Tom Jones cut shirt with like a medallion in his chest hair.
I don't think I noticed that.
Oh my God, I forgot. I was cracking up. It's like a weird, because I thought at first that it was a bathrobe, but it almost looks like he's got like a cummerbund. It's very confusing. I think it has to be like a Tom Jones sort of outfit. But yeah, he's biting his lip at her. Sir, stop it.
He tells her that the doctor is an old man who prefers the company of young. I don't know if he says young girls.
He says young people.
Young people.
Yeah. And then he basically laughs in her face about the fact that she thinks that she is so
important,
special.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, really? You think you're the one person that he tells things to, that he trusts? And she says, yes. And he says, oh, really? Then what's his name? And he disappears. And you can see her be a little bit like, oh, fuck. And then he finally comes to the point, which one of these men would you really choose? So we go back into the village. We have the moment where the doctor is getting... shat-talked. Is that the word in the past tense? Having been shit-talked, you have been shat-talked?
I don't think anyone has ever referred to it as shat-talked. Is that what... Is that
spoken?
when Shatner talks to you, it's the shat talk?
Oh, my God. So, the Dream Lord pops up and says... It's time to make up your mind. And the doctor says that first he needs to find his friends. And the Dream Lord says, is that the word? For the people you acquire? What a great verb. Acquire. It's, just doesn't, friends are people you stay in touch with. Your friends never see you again once they've grown up. And this is specifically something that was mentioned at the beginning of the episode, that like the doctor shows up, is telling them, oh yeah, just wanted to check in on you. And she recognizes immediately and is like, you got here by mistake, huh? And he's like, yeah, I did. So yeah, checking in on people is not a thing that he does. The fact that Rory says something about how you've got to grow up sometime, and she says who? It's a very like Peter Pan sort of situation, you know, Neverland, and having to decide that I'm going to like get my feet on the ground and live a life now. But
well, I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, and not that you would know, but our listeners would know, isn't that kind of what happened with Sarah Jane, that he left her because she needed to be able to live a life?
I mean, that sounded like, from what I remember of her, what she said.
Yeah. And what the doctor's explanation to her was of why he just left her.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just so, like, incredibly condescending to not even, like, tell her, though. Because he just never came back.
Yeah.
You know, she'd been sort of waiting for him. And you can't expect somebody to just go ahead and live their life if they're on pause, expecting you to turn up any second.
Right. And when you can time travel and we can't, then it's like, it's what Renette in The Girl in the Fireplace said. It's like, I have to take the slow path.
Yeah. Yeah. So the doctor here is sort of clearly like being affected by the things that the Dream Lord is saying to him. He isn't engaging, but you can see that it's like getting to him a little bit.
Right. Well, this Dream Lord is not, he's speaking the truth.
Yeah, completely.
And there aren't a lot of people or creatures or whatever who tell the doctor what his bullshit is.
Yeah, thank God. Like I said. So he pulls up in front of their house, and Amy and Rory are inside, still like, you know, battened down. And the doctor sees that there are old people, like, with a fucking battering ram coming at the front door. And Rory says, "There's something I want to do for you." And he pulls out his scissors and he cuts off his ponytail. And she gets this look on her face and says, "I was starting to like it." And you see him just be like, "Are you fucking serious?" Also, don't cut it off below the elastic.
No. Rory.
Come on. But that's okay. And just as they're like about to embrace over this, the doctor comes in through the window. And this is basically, I'm going to speed up here. They get attacked and Rory gets turned into dust. And Amy at that point realizes that she has taken him completely for granted. And she says to the doctor, "Save him. It's what you do. It's what you always do. You save everyone." And the doctor says, "Not always." To which she replies, "Then what is the point of you?" Which has to be one of the singular most devastating lines of dialogue I have ever heard in my life.
Agreed.
Whoa! She said that, and I just went, "Oh!" Like out loud alone in my living room. Ew. No matter what delivery you use, that is going to kill. But the venom in her voice when she says it is particularly horrifying.
And it's not just venom. She is so distraught and heartbroken. And it's like all in there. Like, I don't know if Karen Gillan got the credit she deserved at the time. I think that, like, everybody liked her because she's so pretty. But sometimes she has these moments of, like, just spectacular performance. I mean, a lot of times I personally think that Amy is a little much. Like, the scene at the beginning when she's like, I'm pregnant, and he's not hearing her, and she just keeps going, pregnant. Like, the way, like, sometimes I find her to be obnoxious.
Mm-hmm.
And other times I'm, like, really taken aback by her ability to turn it from sort of a little over the top to absolutely grounded in emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And it's part of what I've loved about her outside of this role as an actress. Like, I honestly think that Nebula is one of the greatest characters in the MCU because of how she plays her.
I've totally forgotten that she's Nebula. It's so wild.
Under all that makeup and no hair, and you can't even tell that it's the same person, the performance that she gives in every movie that she's been in has always been so powerful. And I just love her. I love her as an actress. And it's little moments like this where I'm reminded, like, even when Amy's annoying me, like, the things that saved her for me were these moments.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I just like the cutting. Oh, Jesus. Then what is the point of view? Oh, Jesus Christ. I was surprised it wasn't the Dream Lord that said that to him instead. You know, it had that kind of like self-recrimination sort of tone to it.
Well, I think if the Dream Lord had said it, the Doctor would have brushed it off. But Amy saying it gave it so much more weight. And then when she's like, well, this has to be the dream. It can't be real because Rory's not here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and the Doctor's like, are you sure? And she says, either way, this is my only chance of seeing him again.
Yeah.
And I really like this that she, you know, it would be very easy to play this as like a panic, teary sort of, and that would be completely legit. I wouldn't have a problem with that. But she is playing this as somebody who is pissed off and in denial a little bit and is doing what they can to take action as they are able to. Because that is how she like copes with things, is to take action if she can, if she has that option, which is something that I deeply relate to. I have a hard time letting myself fall to pieces, even when I kind of should sometimes. Like, falling to pieces is a perfectly legitimate strategy if you don't just like completely lean into it forever. Mm-hmm. Sometimes you have to do that. And I am not great at it because I always want to be, you know, solving the problem. Mm-hmm. But here, that's the tack that she's taking. She is not going to sit and weep over this. There is something that she can do that is, you know.
Right. It's now become a nightmare.
Yeah, you know, there has to be something. Mm-hmm. It's bargaining. It's the bargaining part of grief. If this is real life, I don't want it. I don't want it. And so she walks out of the house and she heads for the van, and all of the old people just sort of let them go, which she notices. And the Doctor says that maybe it's because this is the dream, or maybe it's because they know what it is you're about to do and they're just going to let you. And she says, I didn't know. I didn't until right now. That is such a mysterious thing to me. I have never not known how I felt about somebody.
It's also like you said you would marry him. And
that's like, you're having his child.
Yeah,
how
like
did you not
in this
know?
reality, you've been married for 5 years and you're having a baby.
Yeah.
How are you still unsure of the depth that you feel for him?
I just can't understand it.
It's like maybe...
And that's another reason why this like did not feel real.
Right. Well,
you know?
But we're also not getting any indication of what she really feels for him in the reality. Which I guess is why this becomes Amy's choice. it feels like she's decided to settle because she didn't have any other options. He's nice enough. I like him. I like Rory. But she calls him stupid. She punches him on the arm. You know, like, she doesn't act like she loves him. Mm-hmm. And I think for him, and this is pretty much headcanon, but here's Rory, who's this sort of doofy guy, and this wickedly hot girl likes him too. Mm-hmm. And he's just fine with her liking him just enough to be with him. Mm-hmm. Like, that's enough. Look, I won her over. Mm-hmm. She didn't end up with Dickon. Or whatever. Whatever his name was. It's... Stick on Tarly. I don't know what his name was in the show.
Oh, you didn't need to say it like that. Okay, yes.
But then, so she's like, for her, she's just like, yeah, it's fine. Like, I don't have any other options. And I like it.
I don't understand it.
I don't either.
I don't be single then.
Right.
There aren't two men in the world. Jesus Christ.
So then she gets
You're stunning. You could get 6 dates tonight.
Leave your little village.
Yeah. Do anything.
Go anywhere else. Don't destroy a man's life because he's probably had a crush on you since you guys were little kids.
Destroy your own life.
Right.
By committing to somebody that you don't even really like, what are you
And so it takes him dying in a dream world for her to be like, oh, God, I love him. This sucks.
Right? I don't know. I don't get it.
She's very young.
Like, I like the story. I like the episode, like, you know, the structure of it. I like the performances and the dialogue and everything. But what's going on with Amy in general has been really frustrating to me.
Yeah.
I just don't really, I'm kind of waiting to see if there's something about this that makes it make more sense eventually. Because as of right now, it's just weird that she's behaving as if she's in a video game where she gets like one of two options. And those are the only ones.
Well, you know how some people are just like, they are not brave enough to actually leave their hometown.
But she's out here in space.
This was her moment to be brave. She thought that the doctor was an imaginary friend because he left when she was a child and never came back until she was an adult. So then when the opportunity presented itself to actually go on this adventure, and he's like, I can have you back tomorrow morning, she thought she could just go and have an adventure. And then come back and like, okay, sure, now I'll marry Rory. But then she had the adventure and was like, oh, there's so much more. So Rory comes along because the doctor's like, I'm not doing this again.
I guess I don't really buy that with her personality, she would never have gone and done any adventure of her own.
Well, yeah.
It doesn't feel true to me.
But I think that's what they want us to think.
Okay.
Is that she just settled into her life and never tried to break out of it. That's why she was doing these like weird kissogram jobs and not aiming any higher.
Yeah. All right. Well, I can't relate.
Me neither. Being stuck in a small town sounds torturous to me. I would do everything and everything to get out, and did. I couldn't do it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I want to live in a small town now, but I went and did a whole lot first.
Right. And I would rather be single for the rest of my life than to settle for somebody I didn't feel 100% about.
Exactly. Like, that for me is the, you know, as much as I am concerned about Rory and him having his heart broken, I mean, there is a line here when they get into the van together where she says to the doctor, I love Rory and I never told him, but now he's gone. Excuse me? You never told him? You're about to marry this man. And you have not said you love him yet? What are you even talking about? Like, who wrote that dialogue? I really want to know who decided that that was a sane thing for her to have said. And also have a wedding dress hanging in her closet right now. Like, that doesn't make a lick of sense.
Or, at this point, this version of Amy in the village has been married to him for 5 years.
And never said it?
And never said it.
She still would have had to be in the same situation as the version that we know.
Yes.
Where she has a wedding dress in her closet.
Sure.
She's never said she loves the man she's about to marry.
And that's enough of a, like, what the fuck is wrong with you when it's you're about to marry him. But this version of Amy, too, has married him and is saying, I never told him I loved him.
Which is...
No wonder he's so insecure. No wonder he grew that ponytail.
That ponytail is her fault, for sure.
He's just trying to get any kind of reaction out of her. Anything. Other than, like, yeah, you're fine. Let's hang out. Sure, I'll have a baby. I was bored. I don't want to have to go to the theater anymore.
Ugh. Depressing. Guys, don't do this to yourselves, all right? If you're out there and you're with somebody and you're like, yeah, they're fine. I like to watch Netflix with them. Dump them. Do yourself and them a favor. If you are not every day excited to go home and see them, if when you set eyes on them, you don't immediately feel better than you did a minute ago, if you dread having a certain conversation with them all the time, or you get in the same fight over and over and it's seeming to get more and more like contentious, if you just seem to resent each other in a way that you can't quite get past, just get out.
Yeah.
Just get out. Just do it. Do it. As somebody who is happily divorced and about to marry the person that I am actually supposed to be with, there is not a moment, and I am not even exaggerating here, there is not a moment that I am with Owen that I am not delighted I am with Owen. And I mean that in the sense of just in general with him. And I mean physically sitting next to him. I will look over at him multiple times a night and think how grateful and glad I am that he is in the room with me. Mm-hmm. Every day, multiple times a day. All the time. And he makes me feel better just by being near me. If I'm not, if I'm down, if I'm sick, if something happened, that's what you want, and it's out there. It exists. I promise you.
It's true. I didn't think that I would ever find... I was actually fine with, like, I'll just be everybody's single friend, and it's cool. I've been with Jason for 10 years. And every day I'm happy to see him.
Yep.
We've gotten in less... I could probably count on one hand how many arguments we've gotten into.
Same.
Like, I'm not talking about, like, every once in a while, like, he gets on my nerves. That's natural. Mm-hmm. But, like, actual arguments, maybe 4 or 5. Mm-hmm. Like, same. We just get along really well. We're well matched where his strengths are or my weaknesses. We balance each other. And, you know, when he's gone for weeks at a time, like, I'm fine with being by myself, but I'm really happy when he gets back. And I just wouldn't want to be with anybody that I didn't feel like this about. Cause, yeah.
It's the rest of your life.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that, like, marriage, you can get out of it. I'm not trying to say, like, but why bother initially if you don't really believe that it is forever and want that?
We were watching...
I don't really know why you would bother with it to begin with, then.
We were watching Love is Blind, which he worked on. And so I waited to watch it until he got back from the Philippines. And at one point, I don't know if it was, like, the second or third person who, like, proposed. And it, like, they'd known each other. No, it was the first couple. They'd known each other for 5 days. Mm-hmm. Had not even seen each other. And dude proposes. And I turned to Jason and was like, we've been together for 10 years and you haven't proposed to me once. And he just looked at me and was like, do you want me to? And I was like, no, I don't care. But like the fact that he knew that I was making a joke and like was just like, do you want that?
Right.
Like it was one of those moments where I was like, we're very well matched. Because he just knows that I'm not being serious in any way or trying to like do that passive aggressive putting pressure on him. I just thought it would be a funny thing to say, and he understood that I was being funny.
Right. Yeah, I don't know. I even in the end, she realizes like that he means everything or whatever. It's not even like he means everything. It's just that she loves him. And I'm still not rooting for them to be together. That is not enough. You know, like, oh, you don't want the guy to be dead? You were willing to like risk that this was a simulation because you were pretty sure, and either way you were just done in the moment after, like right after he died. That doesn't feel compelling enough, honestly, even now to me, to be like, yeah, obviously they belong together, then I ship it. No, I honestly think that Rory can do better in terms of just somebody who cares about him. It shouldn't take his death for you to figure your shit out.
Yeah.
What happens in another year? Are you going to cool off and need another fucking emergency to remind you that you give a shit? Like, no. This is the kind of thing that happens when you like leave somebody and all of a sudden they like, oh, I didn't know what I had till it was come back to me, babe. No, fuck you. So, yeah, I think that this is just bad news for everybody. But yeah, so she says that she never told him and now he's gone, and she crashes the van and then they wake up on the TARDIS and covered in their, what do you call it?
Icicles?
Frost, ice, I guess, something like that. And they are drifting closer and closer to this weird cold star, which looks really cool, by the way. I think it looks really neat. And they wake up, and all of a sudden, the doctor just is like, this doesn't seem... Hold on. And they're like, what are you doing? And he says, I'm going to blow up the TARDIS. Because this is also a dream. The Dream Lord has no power over the real world. He was offering us a choice between two dreams. And then when it blows up, they come back to themselves on a perfectly temperate, neat and tidy and lovely TARDIS, and everything is fine.
Mm-hmm.
And this is when Amy has to tell Rory exactly what happened. And it's like she wasn't even going to say it still. Like the doctor has to be like, will you tell him? Because it's going to change everything about his life.
Yeah.
And I'm like, girl.
She has some communication problems.
You literally were just like, I can't believe I never told him I loved him. He's standing there right next to you. And you're still not gonna. You don't deserve him. Stop it. Let him go. You are bad for him. This is no bueno. But whatever. So it turns out the whole thing was from a speck of psychic pollen?
Yeah. Sure.
I could have done without this. You didn't even need to explain it to me, show. It would have been fine. I wouldn't have been mad.
To be honest, I did not take in any of that information when I was watching this yesterday. It's like...
Fell in the time rotor, heated up, and induced a dream state for all of us.
I didn't, like... I don't know if I'd, like, zoned out or if, like, none of that information actually sat in my brain. It didn't matter. So, I don't know, like, I was paying more attention to the other stuff, and that explanation just went right over me.
That's fair. I mean, it's pretty meaningless.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. He's basically like, some weed got in there and we got stoned. Like, you know?
The doctor says that the Dream Lord was a manifestation of the dark side of his personality.
Mm-hmm.
Which, okay, that explains why he was wearing the doctor's current outfit. But he could have been wearing, like, the 10th Doctor's outfit because that doctor was very angry.
True.
And seemed like more like the dark side of your personality.
Yeah, he says that it feeds on everything dark in you. And Amy says something like, why didn't it feed on us too? And he says the darkness in you, it would have starved to death. I choose my friends with great care. Otherwise, I'm stuck with my own company, and you know how that works out.
Do they, though? Dude,
like,
you've barely known them.
And also, you, again, have such contempt. He just can't decide how he feels about people. He treats them like pets.
Mm-hmm.
You know? It's just really,
well, I guess to a
you need therapy.
907-year-old alien who can travel through time and space, humans probably seem quite adorable. Oh, you guys are so far behind.
You know?
So cute. Come play. Yeah, like pets.
God. I hate it. So yeah, he has to, like, literally turn Amy around and shove her at Rory to get her. And she can't even look at him when she's trying to explain what happened. It's like...
She does not know how to express herself
God.
in a, like, a real way. She can't... She doesn't let her emotions out until it's too late.
Mm-hmm. Man, it drives me crazy. So yeah, he says, well, how did you know you weren't just going to die if you crashed the van? And she says, I didn't. And he says, oh. And then he grabs her and kisses her. And honestly, the way he looked at her in that moment was pretty legit. I was like, all right, Rory, shit. He just had that, like, I would definitely fuck you immediately if we were alone kind of look in his eye, you know? I was here for it. All right, Rory, yeah, I'll see you. The doctor, understandably, says, should I leave you guys alone and, you know, hop down to the pool a bit? But Rory says, anywhere is good for me. I'm happy anywhere. And he says it's up to Amy this time. Amy's choice. So the doctor does a spin and heads back to the controls. And in the reflection of the controls, he sees the Dream Lord grinning at him. And then, next time. Yes. And I immediately had to shut it off. Ugh, they really want to fuck up my life. They really, really like it. Gets me agitated, man. Gives me anxiety. But I shut it off in time, so I am not spoiled. I have no idea what's next.
Good.
So yeah, this is a pretty fun episode. I liked it. I like this one.
Yay.
Yeah. Even though Amy just like, girl, get your fucking life, you know? She needs to be alone. Honestly, you know?
Unlikely.
She just really should take some time. I feel like about her the way I do about Rebecca Bunch on Crazy Ex-Girlfriend.
Mm.
Just, girl, just no, neither one of these dudes. Stop it. You are a disaster. But I feel the same way about the doctor, and he's clearly not going to deal with himself, so... This show is all about people who really should get therapy, choosing instead to cover up their internal pain with crisis after crisis.
Sorry, it got very quiet. I thought you were going to say more. Like, is there more to that? No?
I was like, I wasn't going to say more. And then the silence went on for so long. And I was like, I'm just going to let that sit. I'm just going to see how long that goes on. See if I can hear the vape or something.
Nope.
So yeah, that's the end of the episode.
Yep.
Anything you want to add?
No, there wasn't really any trivia. I mean, there was stuff, but nothing that either I can talk about because it just alludes to future stuff or that was all that interesting. I did look to see if this had any ties to Hot Fuzz whatsoever, and it doesn't.
Oh, okay. What a shame.
Yeah, I guess that's just a typical English idealism that they can spoof easily in multiple formats.
I want it. Like with all my bones. I really want it. If y'all like live in a town that looks anything like this, let me know so that I can put it in like my dream journal. And not the journal that I write about dreams in, but my like journal that I put all of my future goals in.
Your vision board.
Yeah, there you go. My hope chest. And that way, once I have the money, I will have a specific town ready in my mind that I can move to. Or if you know of a place that's particularly good. Because I just do not think it would be a problem for me to give up everything about where I live now. Don't think I would feel bad about it at all. Think it'd be pretty good. I don't see a downside, frankly. I'm in Texas, everybody.
Well, you go to your little English village, and we'll move to London.
There you go.
Come
That's
hang
perfect.
out on weekends and be like, yeah, okay, this is all right for a couple days.
Yeah, I'll throw the tea parties and like the really like quaint, brunches out in the garden kind of thing. Mm-hmm. But you guys will have the nightlife and the theater.
Yeah.
And
you can come stay with us when you want to go see Hamilton.
There you go. When I want to watch the play about American history.
Yes.
I will come see you in London.
My goal is, since I've seen it already, and everybody's like, oh, you should see it on Broadway, which I would love to do, but it's still very expensive. What I would like to do is actually see it in London because I think that would be funny.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say no to seeing anything in London. I saw a few shows in London, and it was pretty fun.
Did you hear, speaking of shows in London and tie into Doctor Who, did you see what I posted, or somebody posted? I didn't post it. I commented. David Tennant is doing Hamlet. And Dostoevsky, I think it was. Tchaikovsky, the composer. Mm-hmm. He, in his will, wanted his skull to be given to the Royal Shakespeare Company to be used in performances of Hamlet. And most of the time they don't use it. But David Tennant's a fucking crazy person and was like, yeah, I'll use his skull. And so he's been performing with Tchaikovsky's skull. And then when people found out that that was not a prop skull, but a real human skull, they started getting very upset. And so he had to stop using the real human skull.
Everybody's so fucking squeamish.
Right? And I'm like,
this was the man's dying wish.
Yeah.
Let him have it.
That's how I feel. Like, he's dead. It's not like he was murdered for this purpose. He left his body to, not science, he left his body to art. He wanted his head to be used in performances of Hamlet. Specifically.
God, that's fucking dope. I want to do something like that. I'm trying to think like what particular part of the body I would want saved. Shellac my eyeballs.
Ew.
I mean, watching you. Ooh, I like it.
Ew.
Spooky and weird.
I don't like it at all. Go away.
You could make my eyes into like googly eyes and just stick them wherever. And just replace the adhesive on the back.
Gross.
Oh my God. I am just cracking up thinking about that now. Fuck.
There's another postcard. Just print a picture and then put your eyes over whatever it is.
I'll just send out a selfie, but I'll glue googly eyes on every selfie.
That would be funny. Very time consuming. And probably will get destroyed by the U.S. postal system, which...
I can't believe what gauntlets the last set of postcards have seemed to go through.
Yeah, mine
Everybody's
are always
posting
destroyed.
them. I mean, I know yours are, but I just kind of just assumed like you were having bad luck, but it's like everybody this time around.
Yeah. It's because of the machines they go through. They must just be very rough machines, and these postcards are just susceptible because it's got that like coating. And that's most of the time that's what's damaged on mine, is that front coating that makes it glossy.
Boo. Well, guys, if you want a damaged postcard, become a $10 patron at patreon.com.
They're still totally worth it. I mean,
they're
them.
fun to do.
Yeah.
I mean, and I'm definitely going to be using part of Miles's reaction to the Breaking Dawn live read as the postcard for next month.
Oh my God, that was really funny.
So
I saw screen caps of it before I went and watched. I didn't watch the whole recording. I watched until you guys got finished reading the chapter, and then a little bit of the discussion afterwards, and the rest of it I'll just listen to when it gets posted. But
yeah,
it was pretty great.
I just was laughing so hard because I didn't get to see him get up and walk away because I was busy reading. So
you weren't seeing his reactions at all?
No, I had the book open, in front because I was live reading. It was for everybody else's benefit. This is what I sacrifice for my art. You see what I do?
I did wonder how you managed to stay so on task.
Yeah.
Because it looked like you were reading a teleprompter.
It's the Kindle app on my desktop, which is what I use for all of my recording. So yeah, I didn't know that he had gotten up and walked away. I could just see part of the comments were showing from behind the window, and all of a sudden a bunch of people posted all caps, ha ha ha, oh my God, yes, Miles, are you okay? And I was like, well, he must be doing something. And then once I was done reading and I came back to it, I saw people saying that he had just left, and I was like, "Oh my God!"
He didn't leave for very long. He took his headphones off,
stepped away,
stood up, took a step, and then sat back down. But I really was hoping that what he did was actually walk out of the room, just for effect.
Behind him,
I'm done, and actually let it breathe for 15, 20 seconds, and then come back in. I think that would have been totally understandable, because as people were saying in the comments, which I could only scroll through, I can't tell where they applied with where you guys were. I scrolled back to the comments. I was seeing a lot of people talking about how they threw their book across the room, which I totally understand. So him getting up and walking away for a second was the equivalent of throwing the book across the room.
I just don't... You know what? I talked about it already on that show. If you want to listen to our Talking About Twilight guys, you can become a patron at patreon.com/unspoiled, $5, and you can get access to all of those episodes. Mm-hmm. And next episode, we're doing the movie, the first of the two Breaking Dawn movies.
Is this where the first Breaking Dawn movie stops?
Not precisely, but it's close enough that I'm fine with it.
Okay. I've never seen any of them, so...
Yeah.
My love of Michael Sheen will not allow me even that to watch him in those movies. I love him enough. I don't need to see this. I'm sure he's out of control and whatever. I'll look up clips on YouTube.
I was about to say, I'm sure that there's a compilation of him in them on YouTube, and that will just be plenty.
Yeah.
So, all right. Is there anything else you want to add before we wrap up?
No, I don't have any reviews. So I'm good. I'm not good. Send us reviews, guys. It's been a few weeks.
Yeah, guys. Well, thank you very much for listening. I hope you missed us. And I'm glad that I have my voice back to do this one again. And I will be saying hi to new patrons next week. My throat is starting to hurt again, so I'm just kind of cutting this one short. But I will see you all next week with a new episode. Until then, toodaloo, motherfuckers.
Bye.
That was an Unspoiled Network podcast.